of pecuniary interest of any of the items on our agenda this evening? I see none. And we have 2 sets of minutes to approve. So the first, I'll be looking for a mover and seconder that the minutes of the regular meeting of the board of October 19th, 2021 be approved as printed. I see Trustee Atkinson and a seconder, Trustee McComb. Any errors or omissions? I see none. All in favor? Thank you. That is carried. The next set of minutes is the minutes of the Committee of the Whole Board meeting of November 2nd. Be looking for a mover and seconder that we approve these minutes as printed. Can I have a mover, please? Trustee Dawson and Trustee John Stone as a seconder. Any errors or omissions? All in favor? Thank you. That is carried. Is there any business arising from the minutes? None. So we're at Excellence in Education, and I would like to invite Superintendent of Education Lefebvre to speak to this report, but I'll be looking for a mover and a seconder to put that the Blue Water District School Board received the Indigenous Education Act of Reconciliation report for information on the floor. Trustee Morgan and Trustee Atkinson, thank you, and welcome Superintendent Lefebvre.
Thank you very much, Chair Thompson. It is my pleasure to be here this evening. I had the privilege and honor to be at the Reconciliation Hall dedication the other week with both Chair Thompson and Director Wilder. It was a memorable experience, and I'm very pleased to introduce Erin Paylor from Saugeen District Senior School, the principal of Saugeen District Senior School, and she has some special guests with her tonight, and we have a presentation for you that will highlight some of the special events that took place that day. Principal Paylor, did you want me to start with the? Did you want to start with introductions, and then you let me know when you would like the video to play? Okay.
Sure, that's great. Thanks so much, Keith. And hi, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting us to come and speak tonight with all of you. We're very honored and privileged to be here. And thank you, Keith, for the introduction. My name is Erin Paylor. I'm the principal of Saugeen District Senior School in Port Elgin. And I have the honor to introduce to all of you some wonderful people here at our school that have really taken the next steps moving towards truth and reconciliation. And with us tonight, and you'll have a chance to hear from each of them, first and foremost is our elder, Ngwakwe George. She has been our Saugeen First Nation elder since 2015, and we are just so thankful for her contributions and insight and just sharing of her experiences and all of her efforts in making the hall that hopefully we're sitting in actually right now all together to be here tonight. So thank you very much for being here with us. Secondly, I'd like to introduce Sunny Pilon, who is a grade 12 student here at Saugeen District Senior School and a former Indigenous student senator. So some of you will maybe know him from his meetings with all of you last year. And last and certainly not least is teacher Nancy Darlington Smith, and she has been a longstanding teacher here at our school. And I've just been describing her as the spark behind this reconciliation team and putting this hall together and getting all of the wonderful people from Saugeen First Nation community together to, give us some share their experiences and for us to learn from them and put all of these this wonderful space together for students and staff to have here at the school from here on in. So I just want to thank the community at Saugeen First Nation, and I certainly want to thank Superintendent Lefebvre, Director Wilder, and all of the trustees for welcoming us here tonight. And I'm going to pass it over to Nancy to start first. And then Keith, if you wouldn't mind, she'll introduce the video, and if you could present that for us, that would be great. So thank you so much.
Good evening. Thank you for welcoming us as representatives of the SCSS reconciliation team, and on behalf of those at the school who are exploring what it means to expose the truth and take steps towards reconciliation. In the spring of 2019, Bud Halpin, construction technology teacher, and myself met with representatives from the Gord Downey and Cheney Wenjack Fund and determined with our collective action in environmental and social issues that SDSS must represent the organization as a legacy school to engage, empower, and connect students to further reconciliation through reconciliations. We never arrive at an opportunity to act on a passion without some history, so if you'll allow me. In August of 1992, 2 months before of the 500th anniversary of what was then being celebrated as Christopher Columbus's discovery of the New World, on October the 12th, 1492, I happened upon an exhibit entitled Indigena at the Museum of Civilization, informing on the exploitation and loss of Indigenous life resulting from European settlement. The museum's contemporary Native arts curator hoped that the exhibit would, quote, create a ripple effect that would carry to other communities and other generations, playing some part in ending the 5-century gulf between native and invading cultures that so drastically scarred the history of the Americas. Having just graduated from Teachers College, this major exhibition of Indigenous artistic expression hit me in my formative years and influenced me as an educator. 26 years later, in 2018, Chief Justice Murray Sinclair and 2 other commissioners of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission called on all Canadians to, quote again, demonstrate the same level of courage and determination as the survivors of Canada's residential school system, committing to an ongoing process of reconciliation to establish new, respectful, and reciprocal relationships. Within the year of that announcement, the SDSS reconciliation team was established. And we did so with a desire to work in partnership with Indigenous students, Saugeen First Nations, and the broader community, hoping that the work of this team would have a ripple effect of its own. We were building on efforts of others. It's important to note that, to shine a light on Indigenous culture and history that were already present in the halls and classrooms of SDSS. And we started first with an assembly to inform on residential schools, one aspect of years of mistreatment of Indigenous people as part of aggressive cultural assimilation and the resulting intergenerational trauma. Looking to celebrate life as well, we started playing songs by Indigenous artists 1 day a week with the song and the artist name and their background shared. And then commencing a year ago in October of 2021, we began work on what was to be the showcase display case in the front hall of the school. But with passion, much more time invested, and the support of elders and our school administration, the project evolved from the showcase into a wall display and the centerpiece table, all part of what became SDSS Reconciliation Hall. It's one small step in the journey of truth and reconciliation. When I was preparing for this evening, I was thinking about some key learning moments. And the first would be obviously the importance of educating ourselves on the past and the present, building the confidence and faith in how and what we think, but always being motivated by kindness and growing through the process. It's been a year of tremendous learning on all of our parts. And we relied quite significantly on our much respected elder Ningwakwe George, who clarified protocols, ensured accuracies, and much more. I'm mindful of the fact that there are lots of issues that are demanding the attention of educators these days, whether it's mental health, social media, systemic racism, learning challenges, etc. But perhaps reading the Truth and Reconciliation Summary Report is something that some might consider in their professional development. The TRC did it all, the research, the reporting, and laying out a map for our action through the calls to action. I also became quite aware of the importance of the use of language, so recognizing colonial holdovers in perspective and wording. Giving due consideration to a land acknowledgement. There's something that we've come to expect at the opening of meetings, of games, etc. But we need to think carefully about the wording, the message, and how it's delivered. Aware that we can't be a repetitive message that loses its meaning over time, and it must evolve with understanding. So for example, on our wall display, it doesn't include the word guests, but in speaking with an Indigenous colleague and having a conversation about the critical importance of recognizing that we are guests on the land. And when we are guests, we treat a space differently than we might otherwise. So that wording is being added into oral addresses. It's also really important to recognize that healing will take many years and that our responsibility is ongoing. This is a fabulous space and the work on it was terrific. The celebration was moving and meaningful, but we are very cognizant of the fact that it doesn't stop here, that we need to continue moving forward. We must recognize the needs of our students, especially those who are traumatized, and seek avenues to support them in their healing in their own time. So for example, we were discussing a new aspect of the hall with a former student from SDSS, Kiana Kimawan, who prepared the beaded red dress in the display. She came in to see the site as she'd been unable to participate on the unveiling day. And we got talking about residential schools, and she said she really felt it was important to have that incorporated in, and has offered to bead an orange shirt as part of it. But in our discussion at our meeting last week, the idea of having an elder to come in, and we would invite Saugeen First Nation Indigenous students to the front hall, and that space could be unveiled to them first with the support of an elder who is trained in healing. So we're hopeful that, as I said, that this space will create a ripple effect, that it will move throughout our school, into our community and beyond, so that many more will take steps to seek the truth and participate in reconciliation. We have so much to learn and to celebrate and appreciate from the Indigenous worldview and contributions to our collective well-being with respect to democracy, culture, community, and environmental protection. So on October 21st, we had some outside guests and elders involved in the unveiling of the space, with an assembly videotaped and shared into classrooms on the next day. And to protect the integrity of that video, rather than trying to reduce it to a shorter piece, a short video was prepared last week to showcase the space with you this evening. But we do hope that you've had the opportunity to, or will have the opportunity to watch the video from the October 20th and 21st. Thanks so much. So Mr. Lefebvre, if you could play the video.
The crown jewel of the Reconciliation Hall is the Reconciliation Table. The table was a multi-effort project that was split into two parts, the artwork and the frame. The artwork encased in the table was a collaborative project by Emily Kiwagijic and Rachel Shave. The piece was originally made in 2019 for Treaty Recognition Week at SDSS. Every student at the school had the opportunity to contribute to the painting. Featured in the artwork is Turtle Island, with the innermost part of the shell being the Bruce Peninsula. Surrounding the peninsula are figures holding hands, which were inspired by historic rock carvings. The frame for the table was constructed by Reed Bedard, Ira Kimwan, and Riley Campbell as a part of Mr. Halpin's offsite construction program class. After various trials and tests, the final product was an oak frame table with a glass tabletop to ensure safety and preservation of the artwork. Both the creation process and the art itself are representative of unity. We must all work together on a collective journey of truth and reconciliation.
So we had many interesting and informative discussions about what to put in the display case here. We talked about what it was important for people to know about Indigenous peoples of this area and reconciliation. So what you see here is some of the history that a lot of people didn't know about, and it was our absolute pleasure to be able to inform people about it. We were learning some of this ourselves as we discussed what would go into the display case. So what you see is the treaties down each side here. And what that explains is that this is our traditional territory. We've lived here for thousands of years. We had our own unique cultures, traditions. We still have to this day. And we decided that we wanted to educate people about some of the things that happened to us. The residential schools are depicted in this map. Our graduation cap is done in specific colors to show that there was also the impact of the 60 scoop, the Indian Day schools and the residential schools. Over here, you see something that signifies the missing and murdered Indigenous women. But in spite of all of that, we still managed to hang on to our language and our culture and our traditions. So that's why we've chosen some very specific pieces of crafts to show that. This is almost a dying art here. The quill work on the birch bark basket weaving. We have a world-class artisan on our First Nation community of Saugeen who does that. Her work is displayed in many places around the world. So as we had our many meetings to decide what we were going to put in the display case here, the thought that kept coming to me was, in spite of everything that happened to us, we still managed to keep our culture and our traditions alive. A phrase that I'd heard before I moved home, "We are still here," kept resonating in my mind and my heart. We are still here.
The wall mount is a 3-panel display that is an information resource to answer 2 main questions. Why is this important and what can we do? The panel on the left speaks on why reconciliation is important and covers the importance of preserving Indigenous culture, recognizing the survival of Indigenous culture, and coming together to ensure it lives on for generations to come. The middle panel is a land acknowledgement, which is a statement of honesty and honor that recognizes and respects Indigenous people as traditional inhabitants of this land and the enduring relationships between Indigenous people and their territories. The final panel displays the 7 grandfather teachings. These teachings are that of love, respect, courage, honesty, wisdom, humility, and truth. Each teaching honors a basic virtue that is needed to walk a full and healthy life. Each teaching also has an animal associated with it on the display, and these are stickers courtesy of Taylor Cameron. The teachings are tied in with actions needed in order to achieve further reconciliation through reconciliation.
So I'm very pleased to turn the laptop over to Elder Ningwakwe George to address you.
Thank you. Good evening. It's a sacred privilege to have been a part of this project, because I felt that, oh, it says you're muted.
We can hear you.
No, we can hear you.
You can hear me, okay.
You're fine, yeah.
All right. So I got as far as saying that it was a sacred privilege to be a part of this project because I felt that it gave us the opportunity to model reconciliation. When we sat together, it was a collaboration of students and staff and myself as an elder from Saugeen First Nation. I've been working here at this school for 6 years as a visiting elder. But I want to say that I'm also a graduate of Saugeen District Secondary School in the other building that is now the Maple Square Mall. But I've also lived some of this history that we decided that we wanted people to learn about and to understand. I did go to residential school, Brantford Mohawk Institute, where the ground penetrating radar has started. And I did go to Indian Day School for several years. When we were putting together the pieces of information that we wanted people to understand, we took it out to people in the community so that they could confirm that we were telling people accurate pieces of our history. And that's when I found out that, wow, some of the people that were involved in the 60 Scoop and some of the people that were involved in the missing and murdered Indigenous women, I knew, and I actually babysat some of them. So it was very touching to uncover those pieces of information. All of the collaboration that we did was well worth it because when we had our unveiling and we had people come in from Saugeen First Nation and speak, and then the video went out afterwards, we had such good feedback and people thanked us for all of the work that we did. We look forward to being able to expand on what you see here today and adding pieces from time to time. Miigwech. Going to pass it on to Sunny P. Long.
All right. Ani Bojo, Jiks Gode Nin Dishnakaz, Gnabajing Nin Donjaba. Good evening, everybody. So to close out this presentation, I'd like to take a few moments to talk about the next steps and what that'll look like for the Reconciliation Hall. So the main focus that we've had in our discussion has been focusing on the longevity of the space and making sure that this isn't just one thing that pops up and it's over with. We have to make sure we have to constantly update it and make sure that people are aware of everything. And some ideas for that may be during May 5th, I believe, is Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls Day. And so that would be a good time to be able to expand upon everything that we have here and inform people further of other issues regarding Indigenous peoples. And another idea maybe as well as keeping people more updated with residential school findings, because some things like in the media, they tend to blow up at one time and then die out very fast after, but it needs to be common knowledge and everybody needs to be updated and kept up to date with all of this new information coming out, especially with, as Ngwakwe mentioned, the ground penetrating radar and Mohawk Institute and all the new findings that are occurring. And another aspect is just the visual aspect of the space. We can add more art pieces, and in our discussions we had mentioned putting a dream catcher around the clock in the hall, just things like that, just to keep it constantly updated and obviously just promoting the longevity of the space. And the unveiling of the hall was only the beginning. We hope that the schools and individuals in our community follow in SDS's footsteps and take action. As an Indigenous student of the school board, it is especially important to me that change will occur. The recent movements to make people aware of the issues regarding Indigenous peoples in our community and all across the country cannot die out. Indigenous people are resilient, but cooperation is necessary in order to move forward. We have begun our part on the journey to further truth and reconciliation, and I hope you are all committed to do your parts as well. Thank you. Miigwech.
Thank you very much for having us tonight and extending that invitation. We were certainly just very honored to be able to speak and share some of the amazing work that this group of people have spent many, many hours and days working towards, and we're certainly committed to continuing that progress here at SDSS. So thank you very much.
If I could, I would just like to add that not with us this evening, but involved Ireland Sawyer, who is the current Saugeen First Nation Senator, thank you. Sydney Morris, who's graduated, was integral to the work here. We have Pat Vanderholst as and Alyssa Dunlop as staff, and certainly Dan Wiegand, who was our communications genius, and I think will be with us. We're looking to expand to include students from grade 7 through 12 in growing this in different ways in the hall, as well as through different activities and guest speakers that we can connect with other schools as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Erin, and to your team, Ningwakwe and Sunny and Nancy. Thank you so much for joining us this evening and for your wonderful presentation. I guess I would turn it back to you, Chair Thompson, if there are any questions for our team.
Agreed. Thank you so much for your presentation. And do trustees have any questions or comments? Trustee McComb.
I just wanted to say how nice it is to see Priscilla George again. That's how I knew her when we graduated grade 13 together at Saugeen District. Nice to see you again and hear you speak.
Sorry, would you mind saying your name one more time for us?
Marilyn, I was Macintosh back then.
Trustee Morgan.
As the board has been in lockdown for so long, I think when some of this nonsense is lifted, it would be very, very nice if the board could do a field trip and see the displays. I'd be really interested in that.
And we would love to have all of you come whenever that would work for all of you.
Trustee Lutz.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank you all for the presentation and for sharing all the details of the incredible space you have created. I know I was very disappointed to not be able to attend in person for the unveiling. And I would also like to thank Trustee McComb for answering a burning question I had of if Elder George and her had attended school together. So I thank you so much for the presentation and for satiating my burning curiosity. So thank you very much.
Trustee Johnstone.
Yes, excuse me. I really was really impressed with the presentation, and especially the space and the idea of the ongoing space and the growth of the space. One of the things we had put on our board about the opening and everything, and I'd actually heard from somebody out in the community asking about it, about if there was, futuristically going to be any, say, I guess, consideration or joining with, but they said the Great Lakes Métis Council or the Historic Saugeen Métis, and I'm just wondering if that's a consideration going down the road. They were just asking me. I sent them back to the principal of the school.
And Jan, we're certainly happy to have anyone reach out to us and extend. I think it's important to continue, like this group is definitely open to continuing the learning and making sure that everyone is represented and included in that. So we're quite happy to have that person connect with myself and, start to action those things moving forward. So thank you for bringing that up today.
No problem, and thank you. Yes, I did send her off to you, Erin.
Any other questions or comments? I did have the privilege to attend, and I just wanted to say I was really pleased to be invited to share and witness what had been accomplished. But what struck me the most when I was there is the relationships that have been forged. I was really truly moved to see the respect between the staff and the students and the elders. It was extremely touching to watch that just in their eyes as each other spoke. I was wishing every one of you could be there, and in fact, much broader than that. So when you have the opportunity to watch the video, please do. It won't be quite the same, but I think you may pick up some of the sense of the real respect that each has for each other. And I was very touched to be included as part of that, to witness that and to learn. I learned a lot. So thank you so much for including me.
That was really lovely. Thank you for that comment, and you're certainly always welcome.
So it was moved by Trustee Morgan and seconded by Trustee Atkinson that the Blue Water District School Board received the Indigenous Education Act of Reconciliation report for information. All in favor? Thank you, that is carried. And thank you again for your presentation and for all the work that you've done.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
We have no delegations tonight, which takes us to our reports. And the first is recommendations coming out of the Committee of the Whole Board, November 2nd. I will be the mover on these recommendations, and I'll be looking for a seconder. So the first is that the Blue Water District School Board received the Bruce Peninsula District School students participate in the Outers Winter Camp field trip from February 23rd to 25th, 2022, contingent that it aligns with COVID-19 protocols at the time of departure. Moved by myself, seconded by Trustee McComb. All in favor? Thank you, that is carried. The second is that the Blue Water District School Board approved the Owen Sound District Secondary School students participate in the Killarney Senior Art and Science camping trip from May 13th to 18th, 2022, contingent that it aligns with COVID-19 protocols at the time of departure. Moved by myself, seconded by Trustee Atkinson. All in favor? Thank you, that is carried. And the last coming out of that report is that the Blue Water District School Board approved that Georgian Bay Community School students participate in the Pursuits Program Collapore Winter Camp from February 15th to 18th, 2022, and the Pursuits Program Algonquin Winter Trip from March 1st to 4th, 2022, contingent that it aligns with COVID-19 protocols at the time of departure. I see Trustee Morgan. All in favor? Thank you, that is carried. And our next report is the Business Committee of the Whole Board, November 2nd. I'd like to invite Trustee Dawson to speak to the report, and then if it's all right with you, Trustee Dawson, I will put the 4 motions on the floor when you're finished your report.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you very much. Committee of the Whole, sorry, I'm reading the wrong report here. Just give me a sec. There we go. Business Committee of the Whole Board met on Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021. And there are several items for decision. Those motions will be coming forward, as you just heard. One is the Audit Committee report. We received a report from the Audit Committee, which was held on September 23rd, 2021. Appendix A Audit Planning Report to the Audit Committee, and that will be brought forward. We also received a report outlining options for trustees to offset expenses incurred for home internet services. There were 5 items of information that were presented. One was a report on COVID-19. We received a report on the final COVID-19 funding for the 2021 school year. We also received a report on the insurance reserve. There was a report regarding the Beavercrest Community School project. The early years capital program was also presented, as well as an Amabel Sabo Community School use agreement report. Thank you for that. That is my report. Go ahead, Chair Thompson.
Thank you very much, Trustee Dawson. So we have 4 recommendations coming forward from the Business Committee of the Whole. The first is that Blue Water District School Board approve the audit planning report to the Audit Committee as presented in Appendix A. And I would need a mover and a seconder for that, please. I see Trustee Dawson and Trustee McComb. All in favor? Thank you, that is carried. Our second motion is that the Blue Water District School Board approve the audit planning report to the Audit Committee as presented. Oh, that's what we just did. Never mind. The Blue Water District School Board approved the proposed Regional Internal Audit Plan 2021-2022 as presented in Appendix B. I see Trustee Morgan and Trustee Miller. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you, that is carried. Our third, that the Blue Water District School Board approve a $50 per month home internet allocation payment or the issuance of a network connectivity device at no charge to trustees for the 2021-2022 school year. Could I have a mover, please? Trustee McComb and a seconder. Trustee Morgan, all in favor? Thank you, that is carried. And finally, that the Blue Water District School Board approve that Blue Water District School Board staff meet with the Town of South Bruce Peninsula staff as a follow-up to the delegation at the October 5th, 2021 Committee of the Whole Board meeting. I see Trustee Dawson and Trustee Johnstone, all in favor. And that is carried. Thank you. We have no notice of motion tonight. So we are at committee establishments and appointments, I believe. Yep, and we have none of that. Okay, I'm with you now. Special Education Advisory Representative Committee. Oh, hang on, Jen, I'm sorry. I ticked the wrong spot. So first, excuse me, I'm going back to Jan. That's where I was getting myself confused. So I'd like to invite, I ticked the wrong spot. I'd like to invite Vice Chair Jan Johnstone to speak to the report from the Special Committee of the Whole Board in camera November 2nd, 2021, with apologies for messing up.
Doesn't matter. I kept on having to go from that screen to a different screen and then try to find a mute just to let you know. So anyway, it was all fine. So this is has to do with the special report, and it has to do with 2 motions. So I will put the first one on the floor and I will move it, that the agenda of November 2nd, 2021 Special Committee of the Whole Board in camera meeting be deemed to meet the legislative requirements for discussion in camera. And can I have a seconder for that, please? Thank you, Trustee Atkinson, and all in favor? And that has carried. Next, And this has to do with the report of the in-camera meeting of November 16th. So it's going to be moved by myself that the agenda of the November 16, 2021 Committee of the Whole Board in Camera meeting be deemed to meet the legislative requirements for discussion in camera. Can I have someone second that, please? Thank you, Trustee Thompson. And all in favor? And that has carried. And then finally, that the Blue Water District School Board received the Administrative Placements Update Report for information. Can I have someone second that? Thank you, Trustee McComb, and all in favor? And that has carried. Thank you. And there's a note here that immediate release regarding the administrative placements will be distributed the morning of November 17, 2021, which is tomorrow, and that is my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So that takes us to notice of motion. We have do we have any new notice of motion? I'm not aware of any. I see none. Committee establishments and appointments. I would like to invite Superintendent of Education Elliott to speak to this recommendation, and I'll be looking for a mover and a seconder that Blue Water District School Board appoint Stephanie Burley as a member of the Special Education Advisory Committee for the remainder of the 2019-2022 term as nominated by Canadian Mental Health Association, Grey Bruce. I see Trustee McComb and a seconder, Trustee Morgan, and welcome Superintendent Elliott.
Thank you very much. Trustees are aware that on occasion we have vacancies on committees such as SEAC, where we have appointments from local organizations. Our alternate representative from the Canadian Mental Health Association will be stepping down, and the Canadian Mental Health Association is recommending the appointment of Stephanie Burley for the remainder of the 2019 to 2022 term, and we would be pleased to have Stephanie appointed to SEAC.
Trustees have any questions or comments? I see none. So it was moved by Trustee McComb, seconded by Trustee Morgan, that the Blue Water District School Board appoints Stephanie Burley as a member of the Special Education Advisory Committee for the remainder of the 2019-2022 term as nominated by Canadian Mental Health Association, Grey Bruce. All in favor? Thank you. That is carried. So we're to reports for information, and I would like to invite Student Trustee Gabe Rossiter to present the Student Senate report.
Thank you, Chair Thompson. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure to present the Student Senate report tonight. Our Senate welcomed John Farmer from the CMHA to our meeting held on November 2nd. John has been supporting us with action related to gender-based violence and is one of our many amazing guest speakers the Senate has hosted. John gave the Senate a variety of helpful tools and resources, as well as covering topics regarding culture, going from the grassroots, safe environments, sexual assault services, victim services, healthy relationships, and many more. Each senator was tasked with taking the discussion back to their school to speak with a staff member about how to start a campaign to make resources available to students as a first step. Gender-based violence is one of the main projects the Senate has been working on, and having John's support and knowledge have given us an excellent start to tackling this very important issue. Superintendent of Education Lauren Penner-Lipset joined us in this evening's Student Senate meeting. Lauren talked about her roles and responsibilities as a Superintendent of Education, as well as her portfolio. She also talked about OnTip, which is a program the ministry created for new teachers landing their first job. Lauren also gave us some insight into her career and how she became a Superintendent of Education and the steps to be eligible, which was very fascinating. And we really appreciate having Lauren Penner-Lipset on our call this evening. Next, I would like to talk about our student senators' involvement in the board committees. Sean Bonday and Juliana Rutledge will represent the Senate in the Equity Committee. Sean is also the Senate rep on the Parent Portal Committee. We also have reps on the Business Committee, which is myself. On the Policy Standing Committee, we have Mahala Brown, and the Special Education Advisory Committee, we have Juliana Rutledge. As you can tell by the list, we have student senators representing a variety of different committees, which is amazing. In closing, I would like to say how great it is to collaborate with such a great and bright group of students, and the Senate has been working very hard in making our schools a better place. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Gabe. Do trustees have any questions or comments? I see none. So all in favor of Gabe's report? Brenda, do you have a question? I could see you talking.
Jim has his hand up.
Oh, sorry, Jim. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank him for his enthusiastic report as always. Thank you.
And Trustee Johnstone, do I see your hand up? No, we're voting. Okay, thank you. So all in favor of the Student Senate report? Thank you, that is carried. So our staff reports. First, we have the new teachers induction program. Superintendent Penner Lipset will speak to this report, but first we'll put it on the floor. I'd like a mover and seconder that the Blue Water District School Board receive the new teacher induction program report for information. I see Trustee Johnstone and a seconder, Trustee Boyd John. Thank you and welcome Superintendent Penner Lipset.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us this evening. And I have a very brief introduction. I'm actually going to turn this over to Wendy Lowers to share a PowerPoint with you to explain our new teacher induction program, otherwise known as NTIP. And in our department, Wendy, along with the team, supports new teachers in Blue Water to get acquainted with the district and to get off on the right foot in their teaching career. And Wendy's prepared a PowerPoint to share with you this evening. So thanks for joining us, Wendy, and I'll pass it to you.
Great, so just give me a second. Thank you for that introduction, Lauren. And I should also note that Martha Barrett is our NTIP coordinator and she does a fabulous job of it as well. We work quite closely. So I'll just queue up my PowerPoint here. We have slow internet in Grey County. And hopefully you can see that now.
Yes.
Fine. Yeah.
Great. Okay. All right. So as Lauren said, I'm going to speak tonight about the new teacher induction program. You will hear me refer to it as NTIP, as we very often do with our acronyms in education. And so I will get started tonight explaining the program and what we're doing this year as far as the program goes. So I'll just give you a second to take a look at this quote. It's actually from the ministry document regarding NTIP. And so as the quote on the slide indicates, the NTIP program is intended to foster the professional development and provide support for new teachers. So there are 4 goals for this program. The first one is to build confidence in new teachers so that they believe that they can be successful in the classroom. The second one is to develop efficacy so that new teachers recognize how their work impacts the learning of every student in their classroom and makes a difference in the work that they do every day. The third goal is to enhance their instructional practice, so ensuring that new teachers have a strong repertoire of effective instructional strategies that will support the diverse population of students that they work with. And then the fourth goal is to encourage a commitment to continuous learning so that teachers recognize themselves as lifelong learners and also as part of a professional learning team working together to support student achievement and growth on an ongoing basis. There are 3 elements to the NTIP program. So the first is the orientation component for all new teachers to the school and the board. The second component is the mentoring component for new teachers by experienced teachers. And the third is the professional learning relevant to the individual needs of the new teachers, which include planning, instruction, assessment and evaluation, classroom management, teaching students with exceptionalities, literacy and numeracy strategies, and lots of other ideas as well. In Blue Water, we also survey teachers to find out what they believe their needs are and tailor their professional learning to address those needs. And I also attend several times a year ministry meetings with people from all over the province who also share their ideas around supporting our new teachers. So NTIP is provided to all first-year teachers hired to a permanent position in Blue Water. It doesn't matter if the position is full-time or part-time, full 1.0 or part-time 0.1. Occasionally, a second-year permanent teacher may be included if they were unable to complete all of the elements of the program in their first year. But this doesn't happen very often in our board, as we usually are able to catch and support teachers to ensure they're on track to be successful in that first year. We also provide NTIP training for teachers in long-term occasional positions of 97 consecutive days or longer. So somebody who might be covering a paternity leave, for example, parental leave. So in Blue Water this year, we have 44 new permanent elementary teachers, 19 permanent secondary teachers, 25 elementary long-term occasional teachers, and 1 secondary long-term occasional teachers that have been hired so far this year, for a total of 89 new teachers that are enrolled in our NTIP program. Wow. So the mentor role is extremely important. It is a fundamental and crucial component of the NTIP program. NTIP teachers are provided with release time to work with their mentors. And this year we have invited mentors to join some of the professional learning sessions so that the mentor and mentee teams have some starting points for their conversations and their collaboration. Mentor teachers are often teachers in the same school, but in some of our smaller schools, a new teacher may be connected to a teacher of a similar grade in another school. Teachers may also be connected with mentors who have expertise in a particular area that the new teacher might wish to explore. So the mentor-mentee teams, they might work on things like modeling instructional strategies for the new teacher in the classroom, observing the new teacher in the classroom and providing specific feedback, collaborating on an area of professional learning, accessing and familiarizing the new teacher with a variety of resources, and some co-planning and co-teaching. The professional learning from NTIP teachers is supported by a variety of members of learning services, including program, student success, and student support, depending on the topic. Learning Services also provides further support by offering additional office hours for new teachers to drop in. They're all virtual, of course. One-to-one support and mentoring, where somebody from our team, for example, might go into a school to work with a teacher on a specific area or a specific subject. And after school sessions, we have one coming up this Thursday, as a matter of fact, looking at how to conduct the parent-teacher conference. So this slide has a lot going on, but I'm going to get into it in the next few slides, so don't worry about all the information on this slide. This year, NTIP has been set up as a 3-day cycle. The new teachers have been divided into 2 groups, so those hired prior to September 22nd, and then those hired after September 22nd. And the mentors, we find that very often the mentor days don't get used very often, or as well as they could be. And so what we've encouraged is for the mentors to attend on the 2nd and 3rd day as well, so that they do definitely have that time to work together with the teacher, because as you can appreciate, in the busyness of the regular school year, it's very easy to get to May and realize that you haven't used your days. So out of that 3-day cycle, day 1 provides some orientation to the NTIP program and to board policies and procedures and systems that we use in the board. New teachers also have the opportunity to meet representatives from each of the learning services departments and to learn what human resource supports are available to them. And then the afternoon for the first day is spent learning about the individual education plan, the process for writing an IEP, and ways to support students who have an IEP. On day 2, they look at, that begins with a reminder of the professional obligations that teachers have to be aware of the communications provided at both the provincial and the board level. Teachers are reminded about staying current with those communications from the Ministry of Education, for example, and from the Ontario College of Teachers, as well as following board communications, including numbered memos, forms, policies, procedures, and the effective use of SharePoint. The program team from Learning Services, they spend the morning of the second day working with teachers on planning, assessment, and reporting. And then in the afternoon, the program team, in conjunction with a representative from the Information, Communication, and Technology Department, walks teachers through the Aspen program around writing report cards. New teachers are then given an overview of writing report card comments and are given time to work with their mentors to look at assessment, planning, and reporting in more depth. And then at the very end of the day, representatives from the Elementary Teachers Federation and the Ontario Secondary School Teachers Federation meet with the new teachers just to provide some welcoming and to get to know them. The professional learning for day 3 is based on survey results where we've asked our new teachers specifically what areas of professional learning they feel are in need or an area that they would like to focus on. And so for this time around, our day 3 session is going to begin with examining culturally relevant and responsive pedagogy to create an equitable classroom environment for all students. And then teachers have choices of sessions after that, choices of sessions based on the science of reading, intermediate literacy, managing split grades and classroom management, and providing feedback. And then in the afternoon, the teachers will work with their mentors again, but will also have the opportunity to attend a kindergarten session or an intermediate math session. This year, we created welcome packages for the NTIP teachers that seem to have been greatly appreciated. These packages included resources that were referenced during the professional learning, so our team makes sure that they use different pieces from those resources so that the NTIP teachers can really dig into the resources and make good use of them. And then this year, we also provided a resource for the mentor. I apologize for the quality of the image on the right. It actually is entitled Mentoring Conversations, and it's a fold-out that has information for the mentors as well. And then finally, to graduate from NTIP, a new permanent teacher must complete all the components of the program and have had 2 successful performance evaluations during their first 12 months of teaching. Completion of NTIP is then reflected on the teacher's qualifications with the Ontario College of Teachers. And in Learning Services, we are continually reviewing and refining this program to benefit all our new teachers. Martha and I work quite closely to brainstorm new ideas and to be receptive to the ideas of our new teachers, and hopefully to prepare them for a successful career with Blue Water. And so if you have any questions, I'm more than welcome to help address them.
Thank you very much. I see Trustee Dawson has a question.
Yeah, thank you very much for that presentation. It's very informative, and it fills in a lot of questions that I have. When you talk about a new teachers program, are they new to the profession or new to the board or both?
It can be both. Sometimes they're new to the board. They might have been teachers for quite a while, and sometimes they're new to the, very often they're new to the profession. If they've completed NTIP in their own board, then they're not required to complete NTIP. If it's on their OCT certificate, then they're not required to complete it for our board.
Okay, thank you. And a supplementary question, if I might, Chair.
Oh, go ahead.
You mentioned that there's a graduation process based on the professional growth report. What if those reports aren't satisfactory? Do they go through the program again, or what happens?
Yeah, so that would be some conversation with the teacher with whether there's things that need to be put in place for them to continue with the program until they are able to be successful. And so there might be a certain area that needs to be focused on. For example, it could be assessment or it could be planning. And so then work would be done with the teacher to try to support them in those areas. And that's where my team in the program department would come in. They would go and work, they'll go into a school and work one-on-one with a teacher to help support them in that way.
Great, thank you very much.
Great.
Any other questions or comments? I just have I guess a question. Does this represent a gap in what our teachers are learning in Teachers College, or is there unique, specific learning opportunities we want people to learn about Blue Water, or is it reinforcement? I'm just wondering what the focus is.
So what it does is it's that bridge between when they leave their faculty program and when they start working in the real world. As a brand new teacher, you kind of walk into that classroom and the door kind of closes and you kind of like, oh, I'm responsible for all of these things. It can be quite overwhelming. And so it's a bridge between what they've done in the faculty, and faculties are all very, very different. They're different even in the amount of practicum time that a new teacher will get. And so the idea is that it's kind of bringing everybody on board to be in the same place, particularly. So in our case, we want them to have that Blue Water background. We want them to understand the processes that we use in Blue Water, things like SharePoint, for example, how to find things in SharePoint, there's the human resources piece around how to access, employee programs and that type of thing. And so it's kind of a bridge between leaving Teachers College and then you're on your own kind of thing in the classroom. And so it's a gradual release into the classroom for them. And it's very, as a new teacher, a lot of people find it very, very supportive. And as we can appreciate, just like children in our classrooms, our new teachers are all in different places as well. Some are very, very confident and they're far down that road already and chomping at the bit to have their own classroom. And others require a little bit more support because they're not sure. The other piece that we're encountering right now is many of our new teachers have never, they did their practicum period during in the virtual environment. Yeah. And so it's very different when you're in a classroom with kids, the management of the classroom and everything else, it's a really, really different experience. And so supporting them in some of those pieces has kind of started to bubble to the surface a little bit too.
Excellent, thank you. Trustee Dawson, I see your hand up again.
Yeah, thank you for a second chance to speak. Yeah, I appreciate that COVID-19 perspective. I hadn't thought of that. And many, many years ago, when I was a first-year teacher, the process was, here's your classroom, go in, close the door, fend for yourself. So it was like being thrown to the wolves. And I really wish there was a program like this back then. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I see none. Thank you. It was a very informative presentation.
You're welcome. Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you. It was moved by Trustee Johnstone, seconded Trustee Boyd-John, that the Blue Water District School Board receive the new teacher induction program for information. All in favor? Thank you. That's carried. Keep myself on track here. Our next is the next steps for de-streaming. Again, we'll invite Superintendent of Education Penner Lipset, but first I'm looking for a mover and a seconder that the Blue Water District School Board receive the next steps for de-streaming report for information. Trustee McComb and Trustee Johnstone, thank you. Go ahead, Superintendent Penner Lipset.
Thanks so much. So as you're aware, last Wednesday, November 10th, the Ministry of Education released a memo entitled Next Steps for De-Streaming Grade 9 Course Codes and Descriptions for the 2022-23 school year. This memo was, well, it was new to us, new news to us. As you may recall, we've had conversations around de-streaming at the board level and with you, and we are well aware that this year we we're introducing the new de-streamed grade 9 mathematics class, and we've talked with you a little bit about that, and our teachers have been working very hard to support that new curriculum. And there was, we knew at the ministry level there had been discussion around what would be the next steps for de-streaming. But when the memo arrived, we learned that we will be, there will be one sort of course pathway in grade 9 for our students that previously would have been choosing either the academic pathway or the applied pathway. So they're calling it one stream, and they're referring to it as one stream because the memo indicated that we are going to be looking at a brand new de-streamed science curriculum that's going to be released. So they're going to be a rewrite of the science, but that for our English curriculum, the ministry is using the grade 9 current academic curriculum for all grade 9 students, as well as the current grade 9 academic geography curriculum, as well as the grade 9 academic French curriculum. Locally developed course pathway is still available to our students. So when we're talking about grade 9 de-streamed or one course pathway, a single course pathway, we're referring to academic and previously academic and applied coming together into that one stream. So the information that we received in the memo, it really is the information we have at this point in time. So in terms of next steps for us, we will of course be very interested to see the new science curriculum. The memo indicates we should see that in spring of 2022. So we'll be very interested to see what that looks like. And our team has already had an initial discussion at the board level, our learning services program, student support and student success teams, around how we might support, what are some next steps that we need to take as a district to support our students and our staff and our families with this change. And we have looked at, things like how will we communicate this with families? How will we communicate this with students? How will we share, communicate with teachers? So we're working on some of those pieces right now, but we are working with the information that we have available to us at this time. So I'm happy to try to take some questions if there are any, by all means, and Director Wilder may want to also comment at some point if needed, but I'll do my best to answer based on what I can share so far.
Thank you. I just want trustees to know this did not come up as any information in our weekly teleconference with Minister Lecce last week on Tuesday, and he canceled our teleconference today. I was expecting it would be quite a lively conversation with them, but just about an hour before it was to occur, it was canceled. So just for some context there, I thought I'd let you know. So first I see Trustee Dawson, second I see Trustee Lutz. Go ahead, Trustee Dawson.
Thank you, Chair Thompson. I know this is new and you probably haven't had time to consider all the ramifications, but I'm wondering about the grade 10 literacy test and how this might impact that.
Good question. We haven't had a fulsome discussion around that. Of course, there has been some discussion and thinking around that grade 9 English academic course and how are we going to help support students and staff differentiate, find entry points for our students that may have been thinking that they would be choosing the applied pathway for English. So we started our conversation there. We didn't quite get to the next step, as you're indicating, Trustee Dawson, how would that impact the literacy test? But we have started our conversation around how do we support students to have an entry point in that curriculum.
Trustee Lutz.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, my hand's still up. So I have a question that I apologize. It might be a little more complicated, but I'm hoping maybe we've seen some of this with the math class already going. But the question I just wanted to ask is, as we move to more de-streamed classes or one stream or whatever we want to call them, are there or will there be learning skills developed into the curriculum so to help students whenever the time comes to transition into streamed classes or even into just senior level classes? Are there things in the curriculum to be helping them make those transitions and be successful students as they move forward in their education? Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Specifically in the grade 9 de-streamed curriculum, there are pieces around social emotional learning, for example, that have been added and included in this new curriculum. In terms of specific like learning skills are part of our assessment and evaluation processes, but we will have to think about the teaching of that and the embedding of that in some of these courses. So, for example, in the new science curriculum that's going to be released, I'm not sure if they will include something around that social emotional learning piece and other supportive pieces that would accompany the actual content in the curriculum. In the geography and English and French, for example, with the academic curriculum being used, learning skills are not specifically built into those curricula areas at this point, although teachers do find ways themselves to build in these skills in their classrooms, right? Because they're always preparing students for the next step, the next grade, the next piece of the learning, different test taking skills, different ways to attack assignments that they might, be faced with. So teachers do think about these things, but we will have to have some conversations and maybe think about things, in a really explicit way.
Thank you very much. And I just want to say, as someone who experienced de-streamed grade 9 once upon a time, that there can be big gaps afterwards, or there can be big gaps shifting from grade 10 to grade 11 or the like, that it's just, I love hearing that you're already thinking about that and how to move forward and really how to encourage the good things that are already happening in the schools. So thank you.
Trustee Johnstone.
And thank you very much. So some of the things, and it was apparent this year when we de-streamed math, which is a good thing. I mean, everybody has supported the this de-streaming, because we realized there was some discriminations and things for certain groups of students, and so this is a really good thing. My concern has to do with is that if you were a student in an applied classroom, the classroom ratio of students to teacher was less than in a regular or in a non-de-streamed classroom. And so my concern, because we haven't heard anything different, is that, and it kind of goes with what Katie was saying, is, how are we going to provide supports to these students? Now they're in a regular classroom, and what we're hearing is that in grade 9, for example, some of the curriculum isn't even changing. It's not, you're just going into a regular classroom, and I think it's really important that for students to be successful, that they need more supports, especially in a bigger class, or we go to smaller classes so all students can be successful. So with that in mind, Trustee Thompson, I would like to put a motion on the floor for trustees to consider this evening. And I know that Keith Lefebvre has the motion and he can put it up on the screen, so it makes it easier for all of us. And there's the motion that the Blue Water District School Board write a letter to the Minister of Education regarding the recent memo, next steps for streaming grade 9 course codes and descriptions for the 2022-2023 school year, questioning the impact on class sizes, staffing, and what funded support will be provided to ensure student success. The letter is to be copied to MPPs, official opposition, OPSPA, our union partners and chairs of English public school boards, and asking boards to support our letter. So I'm moving that, and I'm looking for somebody to second it.
I see Trustee Dawson.
So, and it's all back to you, Chair, Chair Thompson, in terms of questions, comments to do with, the suggestion of this letter going to the minister, because you just said that they didn't even talk to you about that as the chair, that it all came forward. I'm concerned that there's going to be less staff and that we're going to have bigger classes and that kids are going to fall through the cracks, and what we really want is students to be successful, and also for our staff to feel valued and to be able to be in a healthy and safe working environment.
Thank you very much, Trustee Johnstone. And one of the points that Trustee Johnstone made earlier is, as much as this de-streaming has been an effort to equalize the playing field, to not just to make all students achieve, in a way it could be setting students up to have less equality or less opportunity to succeed. So I really appreciate the thoughts that she's put into this motion for us. I see Trustee Lutz.
Thank you. Just to add on to that, there is documented research literature that supports the concern over non-streamed, one-streamed, de-streamed classes because of the class size issue, and it is often referred to as the no-cost solution to disequity, which shows some of the thinking behind it. Not saying it's wrong, just saying that this is a documented challenge. And the only thing I was wondering if we should add is, I appreciate that we're sending it to the English public boards, but why not the French public, French Catholic, and English Catholic boards, because they will all be affected in the same or similar ways as English boards, and this is something to support all students across the province and all staff, and that. Anyways, thank you.
Thank you. I'll go back to Trustee Johnstone, Trustee Morgan, and then go to you.
I just had a question of information to either Superintendent Lipton or Superintendent or Director Wilder, and that had to do with the fact that is all the other school systems funded the same way we are in terms of ratio to teaching to staff and everything like that? Do that's why, I mean, I actually don't pay attention to what's going on in terms of that. I just focus on OPSPA and so do so because she's saying let's send it to everybody, but it might have different effects on different school systems.
Through the chair, that's a good question, because we did briefly discuss not that aspect exactly this afternoon, but that we did discuss that there are a lot of different local collective agreements which do speak to class sizes. So there are some central negotiations that occur in this regard, but there are still some local collective agreements that speak to this as well, so that boards won't be handling the funding the same way, depending on what they've reached with their different union partners and different collective agreements. So I would think that there would be some discrepancies between that. Exactly, and the funding between boards, I do know that often it appears to me when letters are sent that often, I know that there have been some letters coming out regarding executive compensation from the Catholic boards, for example, but they only did copy the Catholic boards, and they didn't copy the English public boards. So, but that would be for trustees to decide if they wanted to go that way or not.
We'll go to Trustee Morgan and then we'll decide that question in a minute.
I just have a comment to make. I'm agreeing with most things that are being said. I have very ambivalent feelings about streaming and de-streaming. And my greatest concern is that the whole, particularly math, is being, for want of another word, dumbed down. And I see my grandchildren and the caliber at which they're working, and it does disturb me. However, I do think that the ministry just cannot willy-nilly throw these things out with no consideration for the boards, for OPSPA, for the parents, for the children. It's just madness. Thanks, that's my rant.
Any other questions or comments? Maybe we'll just have a quick show of hands with other people. It strikes me that we'll vote on the motion in a minute in terms of expanding the distribution list. What if we were to stick to our originally identified distribution list? If it takes traction, I think it will be shared via some other people that the head of the Directors Association, for example. I think there are other mechanisms that it could be shared with the Catholic board or other boards, and they could pick up on that if that's an issue that they also share concern with. Are people in agreement with that? Or do you want to move it on? I see shaking of heads. Okay, so we'll stick with the initial distribution list. And I did not write down who moved it.
I moved it.
And it was Trustee Dawson that seconded it, sorry.
That's right.
So all in favor, I do not have the motion directly.
Want me to reread it?
I do, thank you.
Or Keith can put it up again. Look at him. Look at him go.
So it was moved by Trustee Johnstone, seconded by Trustee Dawson, that the Blue Water District School Board write a letter to the Minister of Education regarding the recent memo, next steps for de-streaming grade 9 course codes and descriptions for the 2022-2023 school year, questioning the impact on class sizes, staffing, and what funded support will be provided to ensure student success. The letter is to be copied to MPPs, official opposition, OPSPA, union partners, and chairs of English public school boards, and asking boards to support our letter. All in favor? Thank you, that is carried. Were there any other questions or comments for Superintendent Penner-Lipset on the original motion that's on the floor? Trustee Atkinson, I see your hand up still, but I suspect it's okay. So I see none. Oh, Trustee Lutz.
Thank you. I was just wondering if I could ask for a future meeting, maybe, you know, as we get into term 2 or in the spring sometime, to have a report just on how de-streamed grade 9 math has gone, from whether you collect information from a group of teachers, group of schools, or if it's from one person. Just I think as a board we would be interested in hearing about it, whether it is yeah, I don't know exactly where that would report to, but it sounds like there is interest around the table in hearing about how it's going. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that comment. And if trustees wish, we're happy to bring a report such as that back to you. And I would just add one final comment around that. We, as a senior team, we did have an opportunity. We met via Teams with a grade 9 de-streamed math class a few weeks ago and had a conversation with them. We did want to talk to the students, find out some of their thinking. How is it going? You know, do a check-in. Director Wilder was with us, all of all of our superintendents, and our learning services administrators were part of that meeting. So it was a really interesting dialogue. And so if trustees wish, we're happy to bring something back later in the year.
A show of hands up, nods if people are interested. I see support for that. Yes, we'd appreciate that. Thank you. So if there's no other questions or comments, it was moved by Trustee McComb and seconded by Trustee Johnstone that the Blue Water District School Board receive the next steps for de-streaming report for information. All in favor? Thank you, that's carried. And next, our school update. I'd like to invite Superintendent Elliott to speak to this report. So I'm looking for a mover and a seconder that the Blue Water District School Board receive the school update report for information. Trustee Atkinson, seconder. Trustee McComb, thank you and welcome.
Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to bring you the school update tonight, and I will be the only speaker to this report tonight. First, we are awaiting a decision from the Ministry of Education on whether or not schools can resume a regular semester system. Currently, students attend 2 courses per day rather than the traditional 4 courses per day, and we are hopeful that to have this announcement in time to action it for at least by semester 2. The Ministry of Education announcement has been made that PCR tests will be provided to all schools to assist when a positive case occurs in a school. Each school will receive enough tests to cover 10% of the school's population, and public health will guide us as to the appropriate use of these tests. Staff who are unvaccinated continue to perform regular rapid antigen screening tests as directed by the Ministry of Education, and these staff are now testing 3 times per week. Just to clarify about the different types of tests, rapid antigen tests such as those used by staff are used as a screener generally for asymptomatic individuals. Results can be obtained in about 15 minutes. PCR tests, however, are used to confirm a positive COVID-19 case. These tests are considered the gold standard, but it takes several days to get the results. And I just want to explain why we would use the different tests in different circumstances. That is my report, and I'm pleased to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. I'm just smiling on such a brief COVID update report. Any questions or comments from trustees? Trustee Boyd-John.
Thanks. I was just wondering if there have been any positive cases with the rapid testing, if that's something you can share. Thank you.
I believe that we could share that with all of the rapid testing, we did have one person who had a positive result and went and got they obviously have to go and get a PCR test. And so, yes, screening has resulted in 1 positive case.
And was it confirmed positive by the
Yes.
PCR? Okay.
Yes. I
Any other
also
questions?
could, sorry,
Go
I could
ahead.
add that we have also through public health already used the PCR tests. They've come in and supported schools and provided the tests themselves to help. This is an important way that we can help families, because once a class is dismissed, the onus is on the family to find an arrangement for the child to be tested to return to school. So public health has been helping us. They've come right into school to help with the testing for families, and I think that's really important.
Any other questions or comments? I see none. I think that's a new record for the school report since we've been doing them. So it was moved by Trustee Atkinson, seconded by Trustee McComb, that the Blue Water District School Board received the school update report for information. All in favor? Thank you, that's carried. Communications. We did receive correspondence, a letter from MPP Bill Walker congratulating Blue Water District School Board on opening of the new Georgian Bay Community School in Meaford. And so communications announcements from student trustees, staff, OPSPA. Are there any announcements?
Yes, sorry, Jane, I couldn't, my mouse got stuck on my pad and wouldn't move to, you know, I'm going okay. Sometimes I just want to be able to touch my screen. Anyway, yeah, so I do. So just a second, I have it running in the background, some different things. Okay, so I have a couple, so that's what I'm looking for. So, okay. So first off, I will start with that I attended the Western Regional meeting. It was held November 3rd. It was actually interesting because it was a weeknight. Normally we meet on Saturdays, but Western Region decided to meet on I think could have been a Wednesday night, November 3rd from 6 to 8:30. So there was full attendance, and so some of the things that we did, and I'm just scrolling through, but it has to do with is that OPSPA this past year has been doing some really big pieces, and it's called Project Compass. So first of all, Arlene Morrill, who's from the Thames Valley District School Board, she did an overview of the OPSPA's Project Compass, and a consultation was held, and there was comments received from trustees, and it was concerning a false stakeholder consultation template that had been in the appendices. Anyway, she described the next steps in the overall project. The other area that we did, and this is for, of course, as we always do, Gsn funding. And so now that we know, we found out about the, the streaming, and that then probably that'll be thrown in there, but it has to do with Gsn fund or the Gsn funding. And so she was looking for input from the membership, and that's trustees, and of course senior school board staff, and predominantly senior business officials are going to be asked and gathering information. So how this is going to go is that so for the preliminary discussions began in November through the regional meetings. They're also going to the Indigenous Trustee Council. Both the policy and education program work teams are being consulted. And then also key stakeholders like P-Code and OSBO and the Ontario Principal Council, and of course our student trustees. And a survey was sent to all the board of directors members with one response per board. The other thing that we talked about, and this had to do with two policy resolutions that were approved from OFSPA's 2021 AGM regarding funding for anti-racism research and Indigenous trustee positions in school boards. So a question was raised, that does our board, do we also want to include that in terms of our, GSN, because we're looking for money to be funded from the ministry through a GSN to cover that. What else? There was so some of the questions that were asked at this meeting, and I actually had a conversation with our business SO concerning these questions, but it had to do with, the board, does our board, for example, require additional funding to cover areas for COVID-19 support, and also what were their funding gaps. The other areas that we covered were there areas of funding concerning the post-pandemic and what support should be considered going forward. Aside from COVID-19 funding pressures, what were our board's top 3 funding pressures for this year? And from a provincial perspective, OFSPA's submission last year included a number of funding areas to be considered. And so we went through those, and would you consider that list to still be valid? I'm just scrolling down through it. And then also from the ministry's education funding guide, what can be done to better support the mental health needs of students? And from this year's ministry education funding guide, what other things could be done to reduce red tape in administration for the educational sector? And one of the things that really came up was numerous compliance reports for different branches and even ministries. And they're, one of the things that came up was wanting more flexibility in the use of funds. So that pretty much, covered the meeting. It was actually a well-attended meeting and with lots of rich conversation. Next, I'm just looking here. I also chaired a program meeting this past last Friday for OFSPA, and under that was, so that was also very interesting. So first of all, we had a special guest. That person's name is Denise Dyer, and she is a Assistant Deputy Minister of Indigenous Education and Wellbeing Division, and what was particularly focused on is the anti-sex trafficking policy for district school boards. So they actually had a slideshow and they presented it to us. It entailed a lot of conversation around that. We were really, I think some of the things we expressed concern about was the age group, the target group, so 12 and over. But the other thing is that came really out, and we shared, because they haven't really expressed how exactly they're going to roll this up. And one of the things we said is that we thought it was really important that if educators, teachers are presenting this information to classes, that first of all, that they needed training to do that. And the other thing is that parents particularly really needed to be engaged prior to any of their children actually receiving, you could say, this information. So that was really, because we just know that something like that is a lot more successful if parents understand what it's about, so that when their children come home from school, they can also engage in really good conversations with their child. And I'm just going back. Some of the other things we did had to do with equity, diversity, and inclusion audit. There has been one that's been going around, and we preliminarily reviewed and identified recommendations. And though there were actually about 5 recommendations that we saw a connection with the work that we do as an education program work team. We went through that. They then asked us for the GSN consultation input. We also looked at transitioning from COVID-19 school experience, and that's an update. And that was something that I actually worked on last year. And then finally, there's a new specialist high skills major coming up, education stream nonprofit sector, and they were just giving us a basic update on that. And that is, you know, information I'm sharing with trustees this evening. And if you have any questions, I would gladly try to answer to the best of my ability.
Thank you very much. And I'd just like to acknowledge again the extra time that Trustee Johnstone puts in representing us at OPSPA. There's quite a bit of meetings and time that's required there. Any questions or comments? I don't see any. Thank you very much for the report. Are there any other announcements? I don't see any. Are there any conferences, conventions, or out of district meetings that anyone would like to share? Pretty quiet. So that takes us to our trustee Trustee Johnstone.
Yeah, I'm just a little slow on that. Just to let you know that at the end of this month, there is a board of directors meeting of OPSPA on a Saturday, which I just love doing on a Saturday, is spend it in a big, large Zoom meeting.
Oh, I was going to say in person.
You know, actually, I would love to meet in person. We've actually had that conversation. I want to tell you that I only think of people nowadays as one-dimensional.
So I draw your attention to the calendar of events. And when we meet next, it'll be on one page. So that's exciting. Trustee Dawson?
Yes, the Audit Committee is meeting on Tuesday. So that's not on the calendar of events, but I just thought I'd bring that up.
Thank you.
Tuesday evening.
It's going to be scintillating.
As always. Which takes us to the end of our meeting. So I'll be looking for a mover and a seconder that the Blue Water District School Board adjourn at 8:44 p.m. I see Trustee Johnstone, seconded by Trustee Dawson, all in favor. Thank you very much, and that is carried. Have a lovely evening, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Safe home.
Yeah.
Yes, stay well.
Watch out for Bambi.
Good
night.
Yes.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank
Good night.
you.